passionate and insightful they are, and how they're the ones that really know the truth. All asked to do by the most qualified and prominent physicians in the land is to wear a mask to help keep grandma alive. So I suppose we can make some exemptions for people who really don't like their grandma, but how about everybody else's? That's all it ever was, the mask. And now that grandparents are safer, there is some logic in the loosening of restrictions in areas, although of course we've also done the Pete Matt Lucas moment where wear a mask but don't wear a mask, don't wear a mask but wear a mask. And so we're changing the law, but ramping up the guidance, changing the law to make it non-compulsory, ramping up the guidance to make you feel more compelled to do it. Just bizarre. So the masks are parked. We have parked the masks. And now we're moving on to the vaccines. What's wrong with the vaccine passport? Sensible answers only, please. 22 minutes after 12 is the time. Avril is in Northampton. Avril, what do you think?
Hello, James. Well, I'd like to just start by saying that Ben's call, I mean, obviously, that's just horrific what's been going on for his sister, and I think Sophie had some really valid points as well. And I am somebody who is double vaccinated. I work in a healthcare environment. I'm horrified by the way that the cases are escalating at the moment. I'm off work because I'm isolating with my 10-year-old who got sent home from school last week. So, you know, I'll have no truck at all with the fact that people should be getting their vaccines. But my point on this is just whether or not it comes down for some people to autonomy over their bodies.
Yes.
And, you know, yes, we say to a lot of people, you should do this for the good of, for yourself, for the good of, but they just have this opinion where it's my body, I don't feel comfortable. A lot of them are just headbangers that, you know, listen to too much YouTube.
Sure.
But there must be some genuine people, and
yes, of course.
Do we take that body autonomy away for the good of the community, but where...
Well, that's why I think the distinction between mandatory vaccination and vaccine passports is probably bigger than we realised when we started this conversation, because at the moment they're being told that they can't go into crowded areas, or rather come September they will simply be prevented from going into some, or many, or possibly all, we'll have to wait and see, crowded areas without having a passport. To begin with, one thinks mostly it will be nightclubs and theatres perhaps, or cinemas, but we only know for sure it's going to be nightclubs. That doesn't feel to me to be an assault upon my bodily autonomy. In the same way that they, you know, if they were sending white-coated stormtroopers around to every house in the land and sticking needles in your arm whether you wanted it or not, then your point would be close to irresistible. There'd be arguments to be had about whether or not sometimes we you know, with a different virulent virus in different circumstances, we might be able to make a case for doing that, particularly with so much disinformation and lies being on social media, and even, as an earlier caller alluded to, even on mainstream media now. But that's not where we are. This is, if you want to go clubbing, you've got to get jabbed. That doesn't seem quite as big an imposition as you suggest, to me, at this point.
Yeah. Yes, and I probably agree with you. I just, I don't know if I can trust this government not to kind of try and start applying that to other areas of
the thin end of the wedge argument is strong, and that's why the ID cards thing, despite Ben, I think, quite neatly taking it to pieces, emotionally it still feels relevant. It's all very well saying nothing to hide, nothing to fear, so I'll carry an ID card, because this lot are not terrible. So what are the next lot going to be? What are the next lot going to be like? Avril, what a lovely call. Thank you. 25 minutes after 12 is the time, and Mark's in Boo. What do you reckon?
As you know, I'm in Budapest, and basically we've looked at life a little bit differently, let's say.
Yes.
And the fact that, as you may know, from the 1st of July, the vaccine passport for most people.
Yes, I did.
That's the only way you can go. The only way you can go between countries. We've had a vaccine passport now for about 3 months. People are readily, and now we've actually stopped using it in our own country. We used it for 3 months to give it to restaurants and nightclubs and everything else like this. And now we don't use it anymore because we're all at that point where enough people have been vaccinated. Something like 70% of all adults have been vaccinated, and 85% of people over the age of 65 have been vaccinated. The government point of this will get you. They will find you. The virus will find you.
Yes.
So don't hide. Please come forward. Please have your vaccination. So there's been no impelling people to do it. But because probably we're a landlocked country, we realise the importance of being able to travel to other nations. And so having the passport has not affected anybody. We've had no anti-vaxxers demonstrations. We stopped using masks about 3 or 4 weeks ago, and people just going about their normal lives. When I see the UK, and I've got a business in London, everybody's scared to death. And I don't understand the logic of what's happening in the UK at the moment.
What do you mean everybody's scared? What do you mean everybody's scared to death? Scared to death of what?
Well, you had demonstrations yesterday with anti-vaxxers in London. I don't understand that.
Oh, them? So what are they scared to death of?
What are they scared to death of?
Oh, I've no idea. I've no idea. Well, I mean, I suppose, what do we hear? Coerced medical treatment, Rosie texted. There's some of these phrases you can almost hear the echo of YouTube feeds in the background, can't you? But they're scared of, I presume, that I don't know. I mean, what do you think they're scared of? Their own shadows? And they're the ones that call everybody else. They're the ones that are always shouting at everybody else about how scared they are. It's surreal, right?
I mean, I believe callers. I lived in Africa. I had objections to go. Otherwise, you die. I mean, you can cut it.
And do they check? Because I've never been to Africa. Do you have to prove? I can't remember what happened when I went to Thailand. It was so long ago. Do you have to prove at the border that you've had your jabs?
You need it's a yellow vaccination card that you need. I forgot whether I showed it to the customs people, but you do need a yellow vaccination card.
Otherwise, you're not in. You'll remember this. You'll remember this, Mark. 1853 in this country, you required a universal vaccination against smallpox in England and Wales, and you got fined if you did not comply. I'm just reading that off Wikipedia, so I'm not
Which makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, well, it does to me. It does to me. It does to you. It does even in Viktor Orban's Hungary. They have.
People are logical. People are really logical. They can see the sense behind it.
Not here, they're not. And unfortunately, the people are not confined to weird circles in parks having protests against the lockdown that ended 12 hours ago. They're on the benches of the House of Commons. I can't remember whether Brexit hardman Steve Baker and Ian Duncan Donuts were opposed to vaccine passports or not, but you wouldn't be surprised, would you? And of course, when they're asked why, what do they do? I don't know anymore. There it is. So completely different. I mean, the democracy in Hungary is grossly under threat at the moment, horribly under threat. Assaults upon all sorts of institutions from Viktor Orban's, my criticism, you might disagree, but from where I'm sitting, utterly vile regime. But on this one, they're seeing clearly. Well, here, still controversial. Why? I genuinely don't know. And after 29 minutes of this conversation, I still don't, actually. So what is the problem? 0345 6060 973. It's coming up to 12:30. Tim Humphrey is here now with your headlines.
Downing Street says it's crucial people isolate if they're pinged by the NHS COVID app after the business minister caused confusion. Paul Scully said earlier it was a decision for individuals and employers. The country's biggest nightclub operator is warning businesses could go under if new rules are imposed on them by the government. From September, there are plans to limit entry to clubs and crowded events only to people who are fully vaccinated against coronavirus. The High Court's ruled against a coalition of travel firms who brought a legal challenge against the government's traffic light system. Manchester Airports Group and several airlines failed to convince the court that the Transport Secretary had acted unlawfully. The weather sunny and hot in most places this afternoon. Some thunderstorms developing in eastern England later, a high of 30.
This is LBC. Welcome, Jean. You know the rules? Can you name all the things you can get cash back on with American Express?
A coffee, garden shears, celery, a toothbrush, a spoon.
That's time up. So close, Jean. You miss, well, literally thousands of things because it's anything you can buy.
Oh, right.
Earn cashback on anything you buy with the American Express Platinum Cashback Everyday Credit Card. No annual fee. Search Amex Cashback. Representative 22.2% APR variable. Minimum annual spend to receive cashback. Terms apply. 18 plus subject to approval.
Tonight's Euro Millions jackpot could make your dreams come true, but not the dream where you're naked at work. No, it will be relaxing on your own luxury super yacht. Tonight's Euro Millions jackpot is £22 million. Euro Millions from the National Lottery. Player app, online and in-store. Estimated jackpot. Account terms, rules and procedures apply. Players must be 18 or over.
If your dentures or loose and missing teeth make it hard to eat or make you self-conscious about your smile, TDC Smile in a Day dental implants could be the solution for you.
I smile. I'm a lot more confident. I don't have to talk with my hand over my mouth. If I'd have known the outcome and how it would have changed me, I just wish I'd gone to TDC years ago.
Let TDC restore your teeth, your smile, and your confidence. Book your consultation. Visit smileinaday.co.uk or call TDC Harley Street on 0203 7334 987.
Smile in a day, TDC. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thanks a million.
I can't thank you enough.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, everyone. Thank you.
We'd love to personally thank each of you who made Yorkshire Building Society High Street Savings Provider of the Year in the Moneyfacts Consumer Awards 2021. But with over 3,000 colleagues and 2.6 million members across the UK, it may be a bit tricky. So instead, we'll just keep doing what we do best, putting our members first. To find out more, visit ybs.co.uk or search Yorkshire Building Society today.
Thank you.
If you want to make the most of smart working, then here's a desk that'll work for you. From My Smart Desk. It adjusts to sitting or standing positions at the touch of a button. And now includes built-in USB-C and wireless smartphone charge points. Pre-order with £100 off for just £349, including free delivery from mysmartdesk.co.uk. And make smart working work for you.
Picture the scene. Warm summer sun, the smell of the air, and ice cream. Ice cream with sprinkles. It feels so good. No one else feels so good. Knowing that Pension B combined your old pensions into one simple online plan, managed by one of the world's leaders. For peace.
This is LBC. James O'Brien. Call 0345 6060 973. Tweet at LBC. Text 84850.
33 minutes after 12 is the time. You're listening to James O'Brien on LBC. Very, very occasionally, I do, when I drop some little line on you, a particularly pungent, punchy little line, very occasionally I do think, I wonder if I've gone too far that time. Partly, unfortunately, because of this incredibly hypersensitive environment in which we live, while people who like to use words like snowflake and woke as pejoratives spend their whole life twisting their knickers into all manner of unimaginable shapes. Projection again, isn't it? A bit like Mark in Budapest just reminded us. People marched around saying, are you going to spend your whole life hiding on the sofa? Running around Hyde Park screaming into their chips about vaccine passports, even though quite a large part of public health policy on this planet for as long as anyone can remember. So I said that thing about the people who won't wear a mask, think it's too high a price to pay for keeping their gran alive. Just a tiny little voice in the back of my head. So is that a bit unfair? Is that a bit unfair? Because there's always the danger with the kind of people I just described, the ones who use snowflake and woke as insults against other people without realising that their skin is about as thin can be, can clip stuff up out of context. It's happened to me 2 or 3 times. Half the course goes with the territory, etc., but you don't necessarily want to court that kind of attention. So you can clip it up out of context and pretend that my intent or my meaning was quite different from what was obvious to anybody listening at the time. So I thought, is that a bit strong? Is that a bit strong saying that these people won't wear it? It's too high a price wearing a mask. It's too high a price to pay for keeping their gran alive or someone else's gran alive. It's not, is it? And here's the proof of the pudding. Boris Johnson this morning revealed to have said to Dominic Cummings that he doesn't believe we need lockdowns because the only people dying are over 80. Boris Johnson's father is 81 next month, I think. So the line about I'm not going to wear a mask to keep my grandmother alive, I don't know whether it's just received a sort of prime ministerial endorsement, that idea. And I think that's why Stanley Johnson is currently trending, is it? Coming up now. 36 minutes after 12 is the tuss in Bristol. Vaccine passport problem, which I can't currently see, but that doesn't mean there isn't. Adam, what would you like to say?
Hey, James. in principle, I don't overly have a problem with it if it's going to get the nightlife back open. I'm a musician, so obviously I need these places open. But I've spoken to a couple of the venues that my band are going to be playing later in the year, and they're having to hire extra people to actually facilitate this happening. Now, whatever your views on the rights or wrongs of it, these venues haven't made pretty much any money, barely even broken even if they're lucky for 18 months on now. If you're going to have someone checking the so-called vaccine passports on the door, really that person needs to be like an SIA licensed security man, right?
I don't know. I'll take your word for it.
Well, the thing is, right, if it's some student barman or something, they have checking these things, they're not equipped to deal with any potential confrontation that might arise over it, because let's be honest, some people have an issue with this.
It's a bit of a red herring, but I know you acknowledge that. But don't forget that shopkeepers are having to do this already with face masks. And minimum wage bar staff are having to do this already with face masks.
I don't envy their position, if I'm completely honest. I can only speak on on the side of things that I know. Really. Yeah. And it's hard enough running a music venue or club in regular times pre-COVID. They weren't making an awful lot anyway, unless they were the big O2 academies in the arenas and places like that. Do you know what I'm saying?
But your objection is logistical, really.
Yeah.
Okay. Fair enough. But it's not a philosophical objection as an infringement of your rights or liberties. You're just saying these fellas have had a nightmare as it is. Now you're going to make it even harder for them to wash their face come September.
Well, pretty much, mate, honestly.
But don't forget again, sorry, I'm being Peter the pedant here, because again, you can't go into a restaurant without checking in on, I guess they're not checking that super closely. You could pretend you'd taken a picture of the QR code, couldn't you? But
I'm not against the QR code thing in the slightest. I'm going to a festival on the weekend where they're running all that.
Well, just get it done electronically, maybe. I know that would cost money as well, but you have to flash it under. You've got a QR code on your COVID pass. You have to flash it under a thing in order to get into the club.
There may be ways around it, but it just doesn't seem like a lot of properly found yet. These venues are panicking, going, come the day that this becomes all mandatory all over the country, because I believe that's not till September. What the hell are we going to do? Because we don't have the infrastructure in place. These places are often run by quite small teams, at least the places that...
Anything that is other countries would be doing by leading or leading from the pump, from the front to have bouncers, but most do. So the idea of having to bring in one or two is, I'd call it a minor inconvenience, but I wouldn't question the use of the word inconvenience. 12:40 is the time. 456060973 is the number.
It's not like the concept of work. Well, it is a wee bit, but for me, and it depends which doctor you talk to, but because I'm very unwell anyway, it's like, can I really handle a vaccine? Do you see what I mean?
Of course I do, but what does your doctor think?
Well, it depends which one you speak to.
Well, how many have you got?
Well, you can look up St. Johanna.
I didn't ask that. I just your personal doctor.
There isn't a person, you don't get that anymore, you just get a different doctor every time you speak to them.
I'm not being prickly. I just presumed that you, when you said you were seriously ill, I presumed you'd be getting treatment.
Well, actually, it's not funny at all.
No.
But the doctor had to take time off.
Yeah.
Because of COVID.
Okay. Well, I think the quote, as it is at the moment, is that people who have genuine medical reasons of why they can't get vaccinated will not be subject to the passport scheme, certainly in England and Wales. Yeah, no, that's what I'm here for.
See, I'm not anti-vax. I am
No, I know you're not. You've got a valid concern, which I think we've just addressed. I can't imagine Scotland would pursue a different policy on this. If you've got genuine medical reasons of why you can't get vaccinated, you will not be subject to the scheme.
It sounds really pitiful, but I just can't imagine feeling any worse than how I do at the moment.
No.
And I've heard, like, a lot of people, you know, it's tittle-tattle, isn't it? But you hear a lot of people, it's like, oh, knocked out for 4 days. Well, if I get any more knocked out, then I'll be dead.
No, I hear you, but equally, if you got the virus, it's going to knock you out unvaccinated a hell of a lot more than the vaccine is, or even the virus will if you are vaccinated. Take care, Hannah. I hope that helps. I mean, they have already established that you wouldn't be expected to stay out of these venues if you are unvaccinated, if you have a genuine medical reason why you can't get vaccinated. So that is something you need to speak to your treatment doctors about. It sounds like it would be fun. Mark's in Copenhagen. Wonderful Copenhagen. Mark, what would you like to say?
You said that last time we spoke.
Sorry, mate. You should note mine down. Second time caller. I've only got 8 catchphrases, mate. I just have them on rotation. Carry on.
Fair enough. You asked what the problem with the vaccine passport is. I think the way it's being framed as a vaccine passport. We've had it, similar to Mark in Budapest actually, we've had a corona pass here for almost 4 months, I think. And I've been going to cafes and bars. I went to the fan zones during the Euros. I went to one of the games during the Euros. And last week I was in Croatia and came back using the corona pass that we've got. And it's not a big deal.
And it proves you've been vaccinated,
to be honest. Yeah, I got the J&J vaccine about 7 weeks ago.
And that just gets uploaded onto the app, does it? And then you just show it. So if we called it the Corona Pass instead of the vaccine.
Get a version as well.
Okay. So you think it's language?
Yeah, I think
almost?
so. Possibly. It was being framed as a vaccine passport even before yesterday's announcement. And what Mr. Johnson did yesterday, I think that's completely ruined it, because he's saying that you can only get this with the vaccine. And I think that's completely wrong. We can still get it here getting a negative test.
No. Well, this is no. That is different. This is a distinctive move away from that. You need to have evidence of.
Yeah, and I think that's going to be the problem. It's going to make people not want to take the vaccine just to spite the law.
Maybe it is, but pragmatically, I guess there's so much confusion surrounding tests. You know, the lateral flow is far from conclusive. PCR, the pause that we heard from Wembley about people faking them, I think we did at least. So I guess the vaccine, the NHS COVID app, is the most surefire way of stopping people who are in unvaccinated